Welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It is Friday, September 26th. 4 years ago, Reservation Dogs concluded its first season, a big success for FX and showrunner Sterlin Harjo. It earned a Peabody Award, multiple Emmy noms, and the show ran for 3 seasons. FX chairman John Landgraf is quoted as saying, "We were surprised to say the least when Sterlin Harjo called to say that he had written the perfect ending to his show in the season 3 finale. We had planned for it to go at least 5 seasons."
I think that's smart, though, because the main characters were supposed to be playing teenagers, and if you just look at anything like Stranger Things, usually they age like too much.
Also, you look at other FX shows that some people say ran a little long, Bear,
right?
Bear. It's funny because they had a character named Bear in Reservation Dogs, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And
Cheese.
And Cheese. It wasn't a surprise, though, that they wanted to work with him again, Sterlin Harjo. So like every Hollywood writer, he had a spec script in his attic. He went and got that, and he said, "This was supposed to be a movie, but I can turn it into a TV show." Do you need to have seen Reservation Dogs before checking out The Lowdown?
No, but do they take place in the same world?
We'll get into that. They're not spinoffs. They're not a prequel. They're not canon. So no, but there are similarities. Multiple people from Reservation Dogs play different characters in The Lowdown, including Hawke. He had a cameo, I think, in the 3rd season of Reservation Dogs. Both shows take place in Harjo's hometown or home of Oklahoma. Since this is Tulsa, I think Reservation Dogs was a different part of Oklahoma. Both have indigenous-focused elements to their stories, though The Lowdown is more indirectly. And then both are very dark comedies.
It reminds me a lot of Sons of Anarchy and Justified because a lot of people from Sons of Anarchy ended up in Justified.
Yeah, you got right to my next question. I know that this show it's just begging for people to make comparisons. I have 1,000 of them, and we'll get into them later on in the show. I was just going to have you limit it down to 2.
Okay.
If you had to just do 2, and you've just used one up with Sons of Anarchy.
Okay, well, let me keep going with Sons of Anarchy, though, because the full first season of Sons of Anarchy is Jax. He finds notes from his dead dad, and he learns that, just kind of through context clues of it, that his stepfather, Clay, was hooking up with his mom, Gemma, and most likely killed their dad, which is very similar to the plot point here because Lee finds letters from someone that committed suicide, his name being Dale, and from letters he's realizing that Donald Washberg was hooking up with Dale's wife,
So
Betty Jo.
they're both mysteries. The Sons of Anarchy one was based off of Hamlet, right?
Yes.
Okay, and this I don't know if it has a Shakespearean origin.
I was just saying that learning that like maybe someone was hooking up and having an affair
Right.
with someone close to you because
Absolutely.
in Sons of Anarchy, Jax's dad, he would consider Clay a brother, at least in club terms.
Right.
Similar here.
Also, difference though is Lee Raybon he doesn't strike me as sort of a motorcycle wheeling like gung ho guy, right? He's more just he's like a weasel, he's like a cockroach. He's gonna survive everything, right?
My second comparison though would be Tulsa King. I only ever saw the pilot to it, but Dwight, played by Sylvester Stallone, has a very similar board meeting. He's not in Tulsa King quite yet at that part of the pilot, but he's brought to Tulsa King and he tries
He's brought to Tulsa King?
He's brought to Tulsa,
Yes.
and he tries to become the king because he tries to kind of take it over, which is what Akron, who are the villains, that's the only difference portrayed in this TV series, but Akron is trying to take over Tulsa.
So you don't think it's the Washbergs that are the family? The Washbergs are the ones that are the main villains?
I mean, the Washbergs definitely singularly are, but
Akron he mentions, but he's saying that they're buying out a lot of black-owned businesses in order to take over.
Trying to take them over,
yes. If I had to compare this show to anything, I would say it's Bored to Death, but just a more serious, less hokey version. That was that Jason Schwartzman show from like the early 2010s where he played a writer who was moonlighting as a private detective. Very similar to Lee Raybon here, because he wants to be a freelance journalist who just like uncovers the truth, right?
Yeah, but this is a dark comedy, like you said, Bored to Death. I never saw it, but that's like the Zach Galifianakis, Ted Danson show, right? Weren't
Yes.
they both in it too?
It wasn't a dark comedy for sure, but it dealt with the same element of where he would get a clue in his mind. He would want to write his book instead of an article, and he would just want to come down to the truth. So he would go through all these wonky personalities, and by the end of the episode, he would either find out he was on the right track or something else. The other show I would compare it to is one we did earlier this year, Duster.
Oh, yes, no, Duster, because not only, the Keith David is in both
Yeah, that's
shows.
that's an ironic twist to it because, like, this is a sarcastic getaway driver working to take down a
Right.
crime family that Keith David runs. In this case, Keith David is going to help the main character take down a crime
Right,
family.
those are actually my 3, Tulsa King, Duster, and Sons of Anarchy. Josh Holloway's character, even though he's an outlaw, very, very much, like Ethan Hawke's character Lee here.
Who do
It
you
also
think
has
well, I think Josh Holloway is a little bit more suave
they have both the shows, though, have, like, a chaotic energy to them.
and a younger, like, daughter-ish figure.
Right.
But who is older, Josh Holloway or Ethan Hawke?
Okay, well, I think Ethan Hawke is, like, 54. I'm gonna go with Josh Holloway?
Yes, you're right. He's 56.
Okay, so for only 2
Yeah,
years. Yeah.
Ethan Hawke headlines as this ragged, determined truth seeker digging into local corruption. And isn't it weird that we just did a Jude Law series? Now we're doing an Ethan Hawke series, Gattaca,
Yeah, no, there's a connection
and
there.
then Uma Thurman. This is just a random Gattaca fact.
Gattaca as well,
Is
yeah.
taller than both of them.
And what didn't she have something with Ethan Hawke?
Yeah, she I
Yeah,
think married him for a
right.
while, but she also starred in the hit series Dexter earlier this year. So like 3 movie stars who have made the jump into TV.
We just need the Julian Delpy person from before, and you basically have, like, everything that Ethan Hawke got his start with in cinema.
Yeah. Well, he got to start in Dead Poet Society, I think. So that was like in the
Yeah,
80s.
that is
So
true.
if you want to ask when Josh Holloway started, I think he got his start late. Like I don't think it was until Lost that he really took off. Another weird fact is that Ryan Kiera Armstrong, the girl who plays Frances here, worked with both Jude Law and Ethan Hawke in Skeleton Crew. Like she
Oh,
played
yeah, man.
Fern in that, so she played sort of a daughterish figure, even though he played a villain in that, versus Frances here.
She
Yeah.
looks a lot older, like, I was not able to recognize her, but
Oh,
yeah.
I recognized her immediately, but I thought that she was from Paper Girls. So I misrecognized her. So the main character is a true historian, Lee Raybon. How many jobs does he have? Because at one point he says he's unemployed, but that's kind of a misdirection. What?
Yeah, I mean, he owns a bookstore. He's
Right.
also a journalist. He is a self-proclaimed truthstorian because he just knows so much about Oklahoma. It seems like he's almost a detective at certain
I would also
points.
say punching bag.
Punching bag? Just because he gets beat up by Blackie and Berta?
He gets beat up by everyone. It feels like he asked to get beat up at certain points. He doesn't care if he's the punching bag. He just puts on a little makeup and then he goes about his day. He's also a divorced father. The first 2 episodes are called The Sensitive Kind and The Devil's Mama.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke just gets it the worst with divorced fathers. I remember he was a divorced father in Boyhood as well. But whenever he's that father, he's always trying to be a father figure, even if the character he's playing is not that great.
But he likes, I think, to be when he was first starting out, he wanted to be like the pretty boy, like in Before Sunset and those rom-coms and stuff like that. He wanted to be the face, and then now he wants his face to be grizzled.
The black phone.
Yeah, well, that's just an evil character. But also think about even what was the Oscar Isaac series where he was like stepping on glass.
Moon Knight.
Moon Knight, he's like stepping on glass in the first scene. He's not afraid of like living his age. But which do you think between The Sensitive Kind and The Devil's Mama was the working title for the series?
I'm gonna go with The Sensitive Kind.
So yeah, that was the pilot, but also the working title. And it also was the song that they used, the J.J. Cale song. In the first episode, I'll start you off here. After Lee Raybon publishes an expose on the powerful Washberg family, Black Sheep heir Dale Washberg turns up dead by suicide.
Yeah, it's actually the first scene of the show. We see that Dale, he's writing a note, he puts it inside a book, and then he picks up a gun. And then from the window's perspective, we see that the gun goes off. Now, the show is making it seem like Lee Raybon's character believes that Dale Washberg was brought to suicide because of all the corruption going on, and that
Well, that's what
he
the
was
town people.
right.
Right.
But we see it from the window. It might have been something where he was actually murdered.
I think Lee is onto that. Like he goes to the estate sale looking for clues, even though the family doesn't like him. The Washbergs hate the guy, and yet he sneaks in there and he finds that letter that Dale wrote. And I believe that throughout him trying to figure out what the corruption of the Washberg family is, that he's also going to stumble upon the mystery of how, why, or if the guy committed suicide.
Well, it could. I don't know which one to believe, because right before he shoots himself, Dale shoots himself, we see that the gun is on the table. We see that he's written the notes and he's put them in the book. So it could just be a situation in which, like you were saying, he was either killed or he was brought to it. But yes, I actually really enjoyed Lee Raybon's introduction. There's even the Quentin Tarantino yellow text type of the Lowdown. The story, the way it's presented, also the music, very much fits kind of the late 80s and 90s crime noir, like, stylistic choices. But the weird thing is that usually when shows decide to do that, like Winning Time, they try to make it look like that. This was filmed with, like, actual
And
cameras.
it takes place in modern day. It's just Tulsa being Tulsa. But I think the introduction that we then get to Lee is also just as important because it's kind of like Better Call Saul,
He
where,
knows paintings.
yeah, he's a smart dude, but he's not afraid to be sarcastic. He's not
Yes.
afraid to kind of go to eviler depths, like just pay off for a cheap painting that's hanging there, knowing that it's from a bad family
He's a
and resell it.
self-proclaimed truthstorian. So
Yes.
he knows the history of Tulsa. He even says that to Akron executives at this board meetings. He knows that this company,
Yeah.
Akron, is trying to buy out black businesses and basically take
Black
over
owned
Tulsa.
businesses.
Yeah, black owned businesses and take over Tulsa, have a monopoly over it. And he's trying to put a stop to that as well.
It reminded me a little bit of The Curse in that way, where you had almost the opposite, where there was just a cringeworthy amount of white saviorism
Yeah.
coming in there and trying to buy out and then pretending in a way that they are helping the community when in fact they are just contributing to the overall like destruction of what the native indigenous people had set up there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why it mirrors Tulsa King, except you're supposed to be for Sylvester Stallone, but he's trying to do the same thing in that series. But yes, Donald Washberg, he is Dale's brother. He seems to
Played
be
by Kyle.
Kyle
whatever.
MacLachlan.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about like a good cast. They even have Samantha's new boyfriend played by Rafael Casal from Blind Spotting. But yes, Donald Washberg, he's actually having an affair with Betty Jo. Reminds me a lot of Suburbicon. That was not a great movie, but it was kind of similar in the sense that someone died and they were getting money from it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like you said with the Hamlet situation in Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, and so then Lee, but like you're saying, he's kind of a punching bag. He is a journalist, but things that he posts are really bad. He gets some skinheads that are angered at him, Blackie and Berta. They are people that burned down a synagogue, but he wrote about it.
They have a draft, or not draft, but like the book Mein Kampf in
Yeah.
their glove compartment of their car.
And they're beating him up in like the first 20 minutes at his bookstore that he owned.
I thought the guy looked surprisingly like the Epic Mealtime guy, the Harvey dude, but it was someone different. I did look it up, but Blackie is played by someone different. They basically say, hey, stop writing these insulting articles. They're mean, and our mom reads them. And
I thought that Blackie looked a little bit like Tom Segura, but
Yeah.
yes, he's being annoyed. He's annoyed because they paint them as what they are, anti-Semites, but they don't like being called that.
Yes. So at the same time that he's written the expose about the Washberg family, and then suddenly there's drama because the Dale guy kills himself, then you also have the Nazis who are like upset with him, and the cops also show up, and you see he's got a bad relationship with them. He likes to ruffle feathers. He likes to ask questions, and he's barely getting by, as we already pointed out, with his money issues. So where does that leave us? What does he do once he finds this clue at the estate sale?
Yes, that reminded me exactly of Duster episode 2 when Josh Holloway was
Yes.
trying to take Elvis's blue suede
And
shoes.
the way he does this, he just wears them out.
Yes, Lee goes into a Dale's place and he picks out the book that has the notes inside it.
And the note, what does the note say again?
The note is basically talking about how like his family is corrupt. Dale,
No, but it's like addressed in a way where it's like, dear reader.
yeah, to anyone reading this, I
I've
am
written a bunch
probably
of
dead.
notes like this everywhere in my library or whatever. And so immediately I would think that and we see Lee Raybon contact one of his other eccentric friends saying, another book specialist saying, hey, can you buy the whole inventory? Because I want to take a good hard look at all these books.
Do you realize that Lee, and I think it's just a credit to Ethan Hawke, I think he made Lee Raybon, even though his character is not like that good a person, so much more tolerable just from his acting?
I think it was him, and I think it was his daughter who made him human.
I agree, but like Ethan Hawke, he was able to deliver lines like "a faint heart never fucked a bobcat," and it didn't sound completely awful.
Yeah, credit to his acting for sure.
Yeah, no, it seemed like he really bought this episode.
So it's funny also his interactions with, say, his staff. It's like even though his ex-wife could hate him because he doesn't pay her, she doesn't. She still loves him. And just because his staff don't get paid like regularly, they're okay with it too. They know eventually he'll be good for
The
it.
characters are pretty colorful. Yeah, Samantha and Francis, loves his family. They're the heart of the show. I didn't even think that really Deidre, the person who worked at the store, was that annoying. Like, it seemed like
And you do
most of
have
the
a track
cast.
record of not liking, like in, I think, Bookish, or was it Sherlock Daughter or something like that?
Probably
You
both.
didn't like the person who just started working there,
Yeah.
the person who was like selling the
Yeah,
books.
no, well, to be fair, I actually one of my cons of the show was Waylon. I did not like Waylon.
Waylon reminded me of like a different version of the curse. Remember, they hired the bodyguard to take in front of the store and he ended up like shooting someone or something?
He's Deidre's cousin,
Yeah.
and he just wants a job. He's supposed to be security. I felt like he was almost too cartoonish, which this show has a chaotic energy to it that I enjoy, but I felt like he almost was just too much beyond that.
I disagree. I think that he was like, he represented more to the Reservation Dogs, like the origins of his previous show, Sterlin Harjo's previous show. It seemed like he had the same type of humor, but that whole strip, that strip mall that he has the bookstore at, is kind of just a bunch of eccentric characters. You've got the guy, there was the cameraman from Better Call Saul. He runs one place. I think he runs the tattoo parlor. And then right next to him is like the homeless dude. And then on the right side, or maybe right before the the bookstore, is his other friend, Lee's other friend, who I think is a lawyer. And
Yes, and he keeps on going in there and giving him money.
he has a safe. And so Lee keeps on like, yeah, pawning off this stuff for him to take into the safe because he knows that his life is at risk every day that he just steps out, and he doesn't want to lose any sort of money that he gets.
That's what I mean by colorful characters. I also like how contained the show is. Just kind of with that strip mall. Yeah, sure, you get a couple different places,
But
but
you're saying
usually
Waylon doesn't fit in that? Because I feel like he does.
well, I just think that out of all the characters, he was probably my least favorite.
Okay.
But Oklahoma is often shown to be, I feel like in TV shows, this big place. In this, no, I think it was kind of actually more related to where Reservation Dogs made it seem like, where it was small.
I've never seen Tulsa represented as like huge.
Again, you have to see Tulsa King, and they'll be showing big buildings and big cities.
Which was
of it.
shot probably in like Vancouver. This was
Yes.
actually shot in location.
Right. So I thought that the actual place that they showed, I really got into, and I think it reminds me even a little bit of the Netflix series It's Bruno, even though that was just a
Yes.
complete comedy.
Also, with It's Bruno, it could get sidetracked so easily. And that's the same with, I would say, Bored to Death. That would be another similarity. In fact, the Arizona Republic said about this show, Harjo is confident enough in his storytelling that he isn't afraid to take you down some side streets. And I agree with that. But all the side streets are fun. And then they'll become the main storyline. So, for instance, we're thinking this is going to be like Kyle MacLachlan versus Ethan Hawke this whole time, because Lee takes his daughter out, and they see that Donald's character is running for governor, and he's trying to get a bunch of stuff. But then suddenly, after he's hired a bodyguard in Wayland, he gets kidnapped by the end of the episode. And that has nothing to do with what we've seen up until now. It has nothing to do with Dale's suicide. And we're like, whoa, what's happening?
We were shown earlier on that it was Blackie and Berta. They were the ones that actually stuck Lee in the trunk of the car. They had a debt to pay to Alan, and we learned in the second episode that they met Alan in prison, and they kind of worshipped him.
Alan's like the fixer. We're not exactly sure if he works for Akron, if
He's
he works for the Washbergs. We just know that he is like kind of an intimidating dude.
He's an independent contractor.
That's just another word for fixer. It's the Mobland guy. It's the guy from the Fall of the House of Usher, Mark Hamill's character. It's basically Ray, not Ray Liotta, but the one that Mobland was based off of.
I would
Liev
argue
Schreiber's character.
I would argue that he's almost a bigger villain than Donald Washberg is. Wouldn't you say? Especially by the end of the second episode when he has that talk with Lee. Anyways,
I think that he doesn't pull the strings, though. Like, he's just doing he's the dog. He does whatever he's told to. And that's why we're getting ahead of ourselves. What ends up being witnessed from Alan is that he murders these neo-Nazis.
Unknowingly in the back, yeah. He's really mad at Blackie and Berta for showing up where he works at. He's like, I don't want to be associated with you. Wait at the bridge. The second he said, wait for me at the bridge, I realized that they weren't going to make it out of the first episode, because they walk out of the car right as he shows up, and bang, bang. And then...
and we don't see that as an audience member. We're just hearing that just like Ethan Hawke's character. He sees it through like a little bullet hole in the back.
And he throws the bodies into the river.
Alan does.
Yes.
Yeah. And so then for the next episode, you have Ethan Hawke in the back trunk of a car screaming to get out, and you have these kids passing by and they're not doing anything because they don't want to get in the middle of this. And then eventually, who shows up? But
Marty.
and we did see Marty in the first episode. We
Yeah.
didn't really talk about him, but he's Keith David, and he's just very interested in Lee's life to the point where Lee is very suspicious.
He seems to keep on showing up wherever Lee is at, whether
Right,
it's at a bar or whether it's here, and his only
well, two places, yeah.
his only explanation is like, I forgot the explanation he even gave.
No, what happened was Lee was so freaked out that he ran away before Marty could even tell
okay.
him. Marty did show him a little badge at that point, and so it looked like he was about to explain himself. But at that point, Lee had just gone through a lot. He probably had a concussion at that point. He was been beat up, so he grabs the car that he just watched these two people get killed in. Opens the visor, a bunch of money falls out, and then he speeds off, right?
Yeah, no, that was the end of the first episode. I thought, like, in terms of chaotic energy, that was the best that it got because right at the beginning of the second episode, he goes into a gas station and he's like trying to wash himself off because he's still trying to get to his family in time. He's trying to see Samantha and Samantha's
Was that
new
the reason? There are
boyfriend.
so many like different things that are pulling him, but what I loved about the episode was that there was no moral quandary about using this blood money.
Yes.
So many people pointed out, shouldn't you be a little bit more wary about throwing this stuff around? And he's like, no. He's been through being poor. He knows how quickly this thing is going to go away, and if he doesn't spend it now, if he doesn't pay his debts now, then he might as well not even bother.
The best part of the second episode was the ongoing joke. Even some people are like, "No, I don't want your money," and then being like, "You know what? Actually, give me a couple
I don't even think he
hundred."
bothered to count it. I think he was just like, yeah, he paid off his ex-wife who didn't ask for it at that point, but he still owed a lot of alimony.
Right. He went to Deidre. He gave her money as well.
His bookstore staff, who he doesn't sell any books. He just waits for like big sales to go through, which is the strangest way of doing business. He pays off, I think, some of his friends who have been holding debts for him. The guy who he was going to publish the article with his paper, his place had been ransacked and his windows had been smashed. And so he ends up paying that guy too. And so it's just funny to see him use that money. And at the same time, you have him trying to get rid of the car.
Right, yeah, he ends up going to Waylon. Waylon has, I guess, either his cousin or one of his friends that he wants to have employed, even though Waylon doesn't technically work there. Like, we never have Lee actually accept that.
And one of them works for, or is part of the Indian Mafia. I forgot which one, but the Indian Mafia is a direct reference to the other show, Reservation Dogs, where I think the kids either referred to themselves as the Indian Mafia or they were on the run from the Indian Mafia. If you remember, the whole premise of the first season was that one or all of them were trying to get out of Oklahoma. And in this, Lee couldn't love Oklahoma anymore. Like,
again,
literally.
Truthstorian.
So it's a contrast.
Yeah, so he gives them the car to get rid of, and then he does talk with Blackie's mom, but I felt like that part was kind of the slowest part of the episode. We don't really learn that much.
That's what the episode's titled after, The Devil's Mama. He doesn't just randomly go up to this neo-Nazi's mom.
When he went to the newspaper publication, one of the person with the eye patch told him that Blackie's mom was up there asking where Blackie was.
I think it was more to do with the connection to his story. I think he connected Alan to either the Washbergs but he knows that this neo-Nazi sector was not just working on its own now because he's seen Alan kill them. He knows that they were invested into something bigger. And so that's why he's trying to scrounge around for clues. The mom's character was weird enough. We've seen her 1,000 times. I remember seeing her in Unbelievable. She's been in everything.
She's in a ton of things. I remember most recently from Bookie.
What did you think of her relationship with the guy who was so much younger?
Oh, I did not like when he bent over and you end up seeing.
It reminded me his butt crack.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say, but they're in a relationship. There's obviously a huge age difference. It reminded me of Ozark a lot. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, so he gets, I guess, the clue from her that Alan is such and such to her?
Yeah, I mean, he tries to say that he knew who Blackie was in prison, and he learns from the guy that's dating the mom that, they worshipped Alan. Any type of job that he gave him, because I think Alan maybe gave him protection in prison, then they were going to do it for him.
So the rest of the episode is basically him just trying to not immediately get in touch with Alan, but learn about Alan. His daughter misconstrues that and ends up calling or something like that and asking for Alan, and Alan ends up hearing about it. And so at the end of the episode, when his daughter now knows that Alan's a really bad dude, recognizes him as he walks into the bookstore, And luckily enough, Lee shows up at the same
Yeah.
time. He has this really awkward interaction. What'd you think of that?
I enjoyed Lee's lie. I thought that Ethan Hawke played it pretty well because he says that he was just asking about Alan because he wanted to write a story about how Alan hires ex-convicts.
Yes, he was good on the fly.
I enjoyed the final shot almost where Alan pulls out his jacket and it wasn't a gun, but it was a card, and he's like, "Let me know." It just shows
Again,
that
the contrast between Lee, who's been using business cards as Post-its the
yeah.
entire episodes, and then at the end, you see an actual business card. And it was like, oh, well, finally.
Yeah, I think obviously that bond is going to get strengthened. I think it might be one of those things where Alan gets tricked. Like, he might really start to like Lee by the end of the season and then learn what Lee is actually trying to do.
I don't know about that.
We didn't talk.
I don't even think Alan fell for it. I think like he literally still left threatening him, being like, kind of like
He's going to use the card. He's going to use the card that he
I
was
don't know. I
given.
think that Alan again was being intimidating throughout, but by the end he was like, "Oh, you pass," as in like, "I'm not going to threaten you any harder than kind of this oblivious like thing," because he's not for sure that Lee knows what he did. At the same time, we are missing sort of the bigger storyline about where we find out about who Marty is and when basically Lee goes to Dale's funeral.
Yes, he speaks to Marty, learns that Marty is a PI. He was actually invited to the funeral. Lee just shows up.
So it's like the Washbergs are all there.
Yes.
We already know the Washbergs hate him.
He's been Marty has been tailing him the whole time.
So as soon as Donald realizes that Lee is also at the funeral, they approach each other in the bathroom.
That was one of my favorite parts where they're just peeing next to each other, but they're both trying to
They're yelling at each other at that point. It's like after party in that sequence.
Lee by the time that he leaves the restroom is just screaming at Donald. He's escorted out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I think is that Donald who's like yelling that the police should arrest him and like stick him in jail for whatever. Yeah, so it's just an awkward situation, and obviously Lee's going to keep on digging into the family. Marty tries to convince him not to do that because he's like, "I've known Donald forever. He's not a bad guy," and I think that's just the beginning of the subtext to maybe Marty might end up knowing more than he even thinks he knows.
It's Lee's intuition that he's still on this case. I thought that. So again, I explained what I liked about the show. I thought though that while I did like the amount of characters, there was too many subplots, too much stuff that the show was juggling. Because it just felt like with family corruption, Dale's suicide, governor races, and then and just everything else. I just think that it maybe should have like laid it out better because these are
laid it out better.
Yeah, like
if you have so many, there's only so many ways you can lay it
make
out.
more episodes. Did you not feel
8
like
episodes.
This show was jam packed?
I do feel like it's jam-packed, but I enjoyed that because we get so many boring ones, and it's like if you want to watch one of those,
but it
just
felt
go
like
on
it
to
was
network TV.
Because of that. There was inconsistent stakes as well. Lee, within a matter of minutes, is almost nearly killed. Then he's suddenly cracking jokes. Then he's running errands. He's hiring people. This is all happening within like a couple scenes of each other.
If you remember, they're constantly cracking jokes with each other, and then even one of their friends was dead. Like, literally,
Yes.
They just throw that out there like it's nothing. And that's kind of what makes it kind of dark humor versus what you would expect from something run-of-the-mill. I like the fact that he had a freaking Confederate flag as a tattoo and out of irony. Like, that is insane. Who does that?
I do think that the potential for the show, though, is the best thing. I'm actually going to be adding a full point on to my ending score because I think that the potential for this show will be that strong. I think it's going to be really good in the next 6 episodes.
So 3 out of 10 from you. No, what are you giving it?
I'm giving it an 8 out of 10, and I will be watching the rest of the series.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna give you a list of all the comparisons I have on this, and there's so many that I'm not gonna give you the reasons why. You can just stop me if you don't believe one of them.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Black Rabbit, Bookish, The Bondsman, Twin Peaks, The Watchful Eye.
Sorry, wait, why The Bondsman?
The Bondsman, he's that cockroach ability to survive. Remember Kevin Bacon when he gets beat up in almost the first scene? It killed.
Yeah.
But then he comes back to life. You kind of see something similar there. Like, which one got beat up worse, obviously?
And then The
Bacon.
Watchful Eye, is that just because of murder?
The Watchful Eye starts with a suicide in the same way where they write a letter and we don't know what happens. The rest of the series is a mystery. I Am the Knight, The Curse, Mr. Robot, Better Call Saul, 11-23-63, Black K
Wait,
Klansman.
11-23-63 was like the JFK thing or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. If you read the book, the main character gets the shit kicked out of him by these thugs in like a later part of the story. Black K Klansman, and then High Desert and Poker Face. So yeah, those are all my comparisons. It's been also compared to Nice Guys and Fargo, but that's more like a wide stream. Where
I mean,
was
both, yeah, like FX shows. I was gonna actually say, yes, Nice Guys, Ryan Gosling's character, Lee, is a little bit smarter than him, but I did definitely see the comparison. I was gonna put that. I didn't say that, but yes,
There are a
Nice
lot of
Guys.
establishing shots. I noticed that. That reminded me of an A24 film. And then, I like the mirror of where Lee was, for half the episode, because he got beat up so bad, was disguising his face and wearing hats and stuff like that. And then you see Donald's character also disguising himself to appeal to the younger votes
Yeah.
by dyeing his hair. And so it was like two, again, completely different characters that are facing off but doing very similar actions. I like that. I'll finish this off with a 2 truths, 1 lie. You ready?
Okay.
Well, actually, should do reception first, or what do you think?
Reception.
Reception has been widely, universally loved. It's got one of the highest Metacritic scores I've seen at 87. AV Club gave it an A-. Guardian gave it 5 stars. Time says one of the best series of the year. The reviews are endlessly glowing about it right now. And so I'm happy you're going to continue watching it. The 2 truths, 1 lie game goes like this. Lee is based off a real Tulsa historian who worked with Harjo before. Ryan Kiera Armstrong, Francis, is going to be the next Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And Hawke hadn't worked with a gun since Training Day.
Well, he was in a ton of, wasn't he, like, in a...
Yeah, he's been in a lot of movies.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm trying to think of the last action movie he was in. I think there was one, like, 2013.
Tons of
so
action
I'm just gonna call BS on that. I'll go with the first one.
Wait, you're not saying it's hadn't worked with a gun since Training Day?
No, because I think he's been in action movies since.
But I'm saying that would be the lie then, right? So you'd be calling that one.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, no, then you're right. I was trying to steer you towards the right one
no,
there
I
at the
was,
end.
I got confused, but no.
So the girl's going to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer. What's crazy about it is, for some reason, I thought that Skeleton Crew got renewed for a season 2. I thought this got renewed for a season 2 for a little bit, and so I thought she was going to be like super duper busy. But no, I don't think that there's been an official word on either one. So that's why she's going to get big.
Well, yeah, maybe
like this is like seeing Jenna Ortega in probably You time period.
But do you think that she's going to become bigger than the person who's been cast as Supergirl?
Well, I mean, much different age. She's 15. The other lady's like 23, 24, right?
Yeah, I know, but just like comparing their careers.
Oh, I don't know. Are you making it better or something? I do think it's funny. She's already been in a movie, Firestarter, which came out in 2022.
Don't remember it.
It was you'd recognize the cover. Anyways, I'll finish off on a Gattaca fact, okay? Yeah. When it was first released, as part of the marketing campaign, there were advertisements for people to have their children genetically engineered. And thousands of people called in wanting to have their offspring genetically engineered. It makes more sense if you think about how in vitro has changed over the years, but still kind of crazy. All right, thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.